Switching gears from educating in the classroom to a little historical education. 50 years after the Vietnam War, some of the images and stories we remember best came from American POWs. The enemy held them hostage in a notorious North Vietnamese prison known as the Hanoi Hilton. In our special series, Vietnam in the Carolinas, we see and hear what it was like inside that prison and how the voices of anti-war protesters actually made things a little bit worse for them. Carolina Impact's Jeff Sonnier reports from Hickory with a story we call Voices of Vietnam.
Hey, Amy, we're out here at the Hickory Aviation Museum, and that behind me is an F-105, a Thunder Chief, fighter bomber that was a real workhorse during the early years of the Vietnam War, especially on long-range bombing missions, where the targets were deep inside North Vietnamese territory, and where the pilots who flew those missions were in pretty deep trouble when things went wrong.
We're meant to wear the gold and silver wing.
Once a week, their voices echo within these grim prison walls. The voices of Vietnam POWs, forced to sing, voices without choices.
They wanted me to form a choir, which I knew was going to be for propaganda purposes. But I thought, if we can get some good out of this, let's use them like they're using us.
Retired Air Force Colonel Quincy Collins of Charlotte spent 7 years inside this Hanoi prison.
You come out one at a time. When you hear your name mentioned.
That's Collins there on the left, waving, finally walking to freedom in 1973 when the war ended. I know you had faith, and that's really how you survived, but you must have had some awfully dark days.
Oh, yes. Many, many times. Tomorrow didn't seem like it would ever come.
That's 7 years away from his family coming after Collins' F-105 was shot down by the North Vietnamese.
Our pilots hit only military targets. Air Force jets struck close to Hanoi once again.
During a bombing mission in 1965.
So I rolled in, and as soon as I got my wings up, bam! I'm hit. The next thing I remember, I am sitting on the ground with nothing on but my shorts. I don't see a chute, I don't see a seat, I don't see anything except 4 old militia guys over here squatting down with their guns pointed toward me and put me on a pole up on their shoulders, carried me off and threw me in the back of a Russian Jeep. And that's how it started.
Outside of Hanoi, nobody knew Collins was still alive until a year later, when they saw that picture of him singing in the choir. The POWs now using the weekly choir practices to secretly pass messages inside their prison. So to the Vietnamese, it was a choir. For you guys, it was a way to communicate.
Exactly.
And a way for the POWs to stay alive, to survive.
Well, you had the torture, and they would put pressure, physical pressure on you to get from you what they wanted.
Thousands of demonstrators opposed to the Vietnam War.
They had played movies and videos of all the protesters, and they were discouraging. They made us feel unimportant.
And it's 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for?
Mark Englander was one of those Vietnam War protesters. In fact, that's where we caught up with him.
We are still here.
At a protest over health care.
Fired up.
You were a hippie.
Yes, proudly. I used to be whistled at. My hair was so long, I would get whistled on the streets of Charlotte walking down the sidewalk, so.
And it's 1, 2, 3.
During Vietnam, Englander founded the Red Hornets, a Charlotte anti-war protest group that got a lot of headlines at the time.
That's you? That's me.
for their lawsuit against the police department. Their protest of President Nixon's visit to Charlotte. The Red Hornets even got Englander on the ballot for Charlotte mayor.
We kept having victories, these small victories, and getting attention.
But almost 50 years later, Englander says the focus of their Charlotte Vietnam protests was never these now old soldiers who fought the war, just the government that sent them off to war.
They realized when they came back what a mistake the Vietnam War was. How could you hold that against them?
It's their right to protest, but they do so at a price.
John Herbert Nasmith, Jr.
The guy that's got me as a prisoner, and he just hangs on to me, and he tortures me, and the rest of us.
Robert Bucket.
But the ending is the ending.
John Owen Davy.
You know, it came out okay. Just being free was enough. If you didn't have all your arms and legs and you were beat up and so forth, just being free was enough to offset that. And my feelings for my fellow veterans, my fellow POWs, is as strong as it was in prison.
Within these foreign prison walls.
3 months after their release in 1973, this is film of Collins and his fellow POWs at the White House for a dinner on the South Lawn with President Nixon. It was also the POW choir's first performance outside of Hanoi. Yeah, you can actually see in the video there, that's President Nixon chasing down Quincy Collins on stage, trying to shake his hand after the choir's performance. And the POW choir, led by Quincy Collins, actually got a chance to perform at least once more during a 40-year POW reunion at the Nixon Library in California. Amy?
Thanks so much, Jeff. To see more on our reports of the Vietnam and the Carolinas, just go to our website at pbscharlotte.org, and you'll find our entire half-hour special there.